Welcome back to another tech sales Q&A. The last time I've done these, they've done really well. You guys really enjoyed them. And I always get tons of questions on my videos regarding tech sales. So I figured this might be the best format to answer all of your questions. So I posted on my Instagram story that I'm going to be going live, doing a Q&A, and you guys submitted some questions. Most of them were around tech sales. I got some new questions around brand building and content creation, which I'm really excited to talk about. And then I also got some really random ones, which I'm happy to answer towards the end. So without further ado, let's get into it. How did you get into sales? Did you know you wanted to do it or did you fall into it? I am in the minority where I actually knew I wanted to get into sales. I didn't know I wanted to get into tech sales, but I knew I wanted to get into sales. Growing up, my dad owned a bike shop and he was a salesman. He was very entrepreneurial-like. Sales is something that is very entrepreneurial-like. You own your own book of business and you determine how much revenue you can pull out of that book of business. And he gave me some good advice. He said, if you ever want to make money when you're older, you either start a business or get into sales. And sales is one of the best skills that you can possibly learn. It's been around, it's the longest profession in human history. I'm also someone that's motivated by performance. Sales being a performance-based role, I know if I work harder, I can earn more. So that's what attracted me to it. Now, I did not know about tech sales. I was actually going to work for ADP upon graduation. I got a job offer to work there. And I thought that was a good opportunity to get into sales. It was horrible pay. It was an outside sales role, so I had to be in my car a lot and sell to like garages and small businesses. It was not a good sales role, but I did hear that ADP offered really good sales training. So I thought I'd spend some time there and then leave. Right before I was going to start that job, I never took my drug test. Now, I don't smoke or do any drugs at all. For whatever reason, I just got caught up in life and forgot to go for my drug test. So they called me and they basically rescinded the offer. It technically counted as a fail. So I missed my drug test. They rescinded the offer. I had no job upon graduation and now I was scrambling. And I started to interview at some tech companies actually by mistake, I think through the help of a recruiter. And that actually got me introduced to the idea of tech sales. You know, I can work remotely. The deal sizes are really, really large. And it's more of an informal sales process. You know, you don't have to wear a suit. You don't have to drive different places. You don't have to work out of your car, but it also requires a lot of strategy. You know, these sales processes that we run as salespeople are like, 6 months long and it requires a lot of strategy on our end. And it's not just like sleazy, I just want to go in and close the deal type of thing. It's you really have to work with the prospect in order to get the deal done. And that's really what attracts me to tech sales. I just started working in tech sales. What can you expect to make? So typically the entry-level salary for an SDR on average is about like $55,000. And I'm going to verify with the RepView stat here. But when I was an SDR, the package that they offered me was $60,000 on a 90K OTE, meaning if you hit 100% of your quota, you can make $90,000. So it was a 60-90 OTE package. I do think that's a little above average. And again, this was about 5.5 years ago. I think now at this point, you should expect somewhere around $60,000 as a base. I think that's an appropriate number for an SDR. It is possible to make 6 figures as an SDR. I know because I did it. About 6 years ago, I made $123,000 as an SDR, my first year in the business. It's very possible now as well, with salaries continuing to go up and companies paying out higher on opportunities. Now, the real income earning is when you make it into an account executive role and you start closing business, these really large deals, you get paid out. That's where the real income can come in. How do you stand out in the interview process against competition that is more experienced than you, specifically for the SDR and BDR role? This is one of my favorite questions. So the SDR role is an entry-level role. However, companies do look for some prior experience, which I think is absolute BS. Now, the way you would stick out against some of your competition in the interview process is to show them you can do the job. 3 things I would recommend. The first thing I would do is get multi-threaded. What does that mean? That means reaching out to the hiring manager. That means reaching out to the recruiter. And that means reaching out to SDRs that are currently hired today to try to get some information from them. What's the role like? What do the management care most about? What are the top performers doing, etc. You also want to get on the radar for the hiring manager and the recruiter to make sure that your resume gets filtered to the top. Now, you can easily reach out to them on LinkedIn by just searching their name, send them a connection request with this short message. Hi, name. I just applied for the SDR role at your company. I think I'd be a good fit because of X, Y, and Z. Looking forward to the interview process. And do the same thing with the recruiter. Now, to stand out even more, send the hiring manager a video introducing yourself. So that's the first thing. That's to land the interview. Now, to stand out in terms of the competition, what you want to do is show them that you can do the job. So create a prospecting deck. Now, what does that mean? It means you're gonna put together a PowerPoint deck and show them what you would do if you were an SDR at their company. So find one account that you would sell to if you were an SDR there. Find a few prospects that you would reach out to based on their title and explain why you chose the account and why you chose the person. For example, based on your website, I saw you sell to retailers, so I chose Target. I also noticed that you guys sell to marketers. So I found 3 marketers from Target that would be a really good person to reach out to. Then you wanna move into your sequence. Create like a 3-step sequence sequence of what email you would send to that prospect and showcase your email writing skills and personalization. Find things on that prospect's profile and include them in your email to show that you can actually do the role of an SDR. Send that to the hiring manager and the recruiter to make sure you stand out. You can say something like this: hey, I just created a prospecting deck for Target. Looks like they're one of your key accounts. Would you be interested in seeing it? You'll definitely stand out there. The last thing I'll leave you with is use your research in the interview process. For example, when I was interviewing for an SDR role, I noticed that the person interviewing me, I saw on their LinkedIn that they won Rookie of the Year when they were an SDR. So I brought that up. Hey, I saw you won Rookie of the Year when you were an SDR. What went into that? That just shows that you've done extra research and you can apply it into your questioning. I want to know your working relationship with your BDR. The current BDR I have, his name is Khalil. We just got assigned to one another, but I've had many BDRs over the past 6 years, right? I have had really great SDRs. I've had just okay SDRs. And I've had amazing SDRs. And I think one of the best qualities that I found in an SDR is them willing to learn and willing to work with the AE style. Now, the way I work with my BDR is we meet every Monday morning and we go through our territory and we hand select about 5 to 10 accounts each that we're gonna prioritize. All of those 5 to 10 accounts that I found, I'm gonna do all one-to-one outreach on. I'm gonna take my time to research them. I'm gonna send one-to-one emails and I'm gonna prioritize them for the entire week. My SDR is gonna do the same with his 10 or so accounts. Not to say that we can't reach out to any other accounts outside of those 5 to 10, but those are the ones that we're gonna be highly, highly focused on. During the next week's meeting, we're gonna review our progress to see if we should remove accounts, continue working accounts, or pass it to one another. And that's typically how I work hand in hand with my SDR. How do you negotiate pay for the SDR role? Most companies won't negotiate. For this particular role, it's very tricky. The SDR role is an entry-level role, so typically the SDRs don't have a ton of leverage because typically leverage comes in experience. And most SDRs don't have a ton of experience. As I said, it is an entry-level role. So the leverage you could have is based on your research. And so if you come prepared with average salaries for SDRs, so if you look at places like RepView, if you look at places like Glassdoor, if you look at places like Bravado, and try to actually talk with SDRs that currently work at those companies, see how much they're getting paid. That way, when you come to the interview, you can come prepared with how much their competitors pay their SDRs, how much previous employees were paid as SDRs, and how much current employees are paid as SDRs. And you can use that in your negotiation. Now, if you're trying to negotiate a pay above what their typical pay is, that's gonna be very challenging to do in an entry-level role because you really don't have that leverage. I will say, when you are interviewing, try not to give them an idea of what you're looking for first. If they ask you what kind of salary were you expecting, ask what they have budgeted and set aside for, because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot if it is higher, if they did increase their salaries, etc. Now, if they give you a salary range and it's below what you expected, that's where you go forward with your script, with your research. You would say something like this: I really appreciate the transparency. The 50K base sounds interesting. However, when I was doing my research on places like RepView, places like Glassdoor, and even talking to some previous employees, I understand that the industry standard for an SDR role in terms of a base is typically $60,000 based on what your competitors X, Y, and Z was offering as well. Now you put them in the position based on research, they can't really go against that. So that's my advice. It is definitely very hard and you don't have a lot of leverage. Will I be in tech sales forever? The truth is, I don't plan on being in tech sales forever. Right now, I'm enjoying being in tech sales, learning how to sell, managing sales cycles, talking to executives, maximizing my income. But I don't think this is a permanent role for me. I'm technically in like the infancy stages of my career. I've only been in the workforce for a little under 6 years. So I'm still learning a lot. Right now, I'm prioritizing learning and earning. Now, do I see myself being in tech sales forever? No. I think I definitely would move into a spot of entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship, meaning I would be interested in a place where I start my own business, where I can really maximize my earnings and my learnings through an exit. Intrapreneurship also interests me as well. I like the idea of working on something small and wearing a ton of hats, having a bigger impact on an organization. And intrapreneurship is when you join something that's just getting off the ground. You didn't actually found it, but you're joining someone starting from the ground up. So no, I don't think I'll be in tech sales forever. It's an amazing career and I'm extremely grateful for it. Where I see myself in 5 years, will I still be in tech sales? Maybe. In 10 years, hopefully not. That's my answer. What job would you want if it wasn't for tech sales? So in high school, I was really into videography, as you can see here. I used to make like really silly videos with my friends, like short films, documentaries, music videos, and I was really into that. I had 3 different video production classes my senior year. I was really into it until I found out how much people in video production make. Turned me off completely. I'm very money driven. But it's funny because it came back around. I'm so invested into video now, creating my own content. Those skills that I learned in high school, are really paying off now. So if it wasn't for tech sales, I was really into video production as a career. What is your favorite part about being a content creator? What is the hardest part? My favorite part about being a content creator, I would say, is 3 things. One is creating. I love creating. As kids, we do a really great job creating. We like to doodle, we like to draw, we like to paint, we play video games. And as you get older, I think we lose touch with our creativity. There's no creative outlets for adults that are common. And so being able to create content allows me to have a creative outlet where I can practice my storytelling, practice my aesthetics, practice talking in front of a camera. And that's been really, really important for me. The second thing I would say is that the opportunities that it creates, that's one of my favorite parts about creating content. Not just working with cool brands, that's great, but not the main thing I'm talking about. It's the opportunity to meet like-minded people. Because I'm sharing all of my interests, I share what I like, what I don't like. It filters out people that typically wouldn't be in my circle anyway and brings closer, like a magnet, like-minded people. So I've got to meet some incredible friends from creating content. And it also allowed me to have some amazing opportunities. So getting invited to places like Nashville, getting invited to places like Tampa, Fargo, North Dakota, because people see my content and I get invited to these events and get to experience these really cool things. The third thing that's my favorite part about creating content is being able to create your own distribution. Now, what does that mean? Whenever I want to release a product or announce a business, or even just try to host a meetup for you guys, I now have this distribution of people that follow my content, and I can easily get the word out to, tens of thousands of people just by pressing play. That is one of the most underrated things you have. The distribution in the audience is crucial. Now, what's the hardest thing about creating content is being a part-time content creator is very, very challenging because you're essentially having 2 jobs at once. Today is Saturday morning at 10:17 a.m. I'm in an office creating content because I have a 9 to 5. I can't really shoot content when I'm working. So that's the downside. It's like, when do you make time to edit? When do you make time to shoot? And that's very challenging to balance both. What was your decision to start creating content in your niche? Well, as I said, I've always created content with my friends, silly things. I decided to start making content in my niche probably in 2021. I found that I had a lot of success creating content on LinkedIn, sharing my email best practices, my prospecting, my outbound prospecting best practices, that I figured that can translate very well onto TikTok. But I didn't want to do just more like educational, me talking in front of a camera type of TikToks. I wanted to combine lifestyle content with educational content in the tech sales niche. And I think I've done a pretty good job of doing that. It is challenging to balance both. Being in a niche though does come with some downsides. Being in a tech sales niche, there's only so many people that work in tech sales. And there's also a bunch of other tech sales creators as well. So it's kind of noisy. I can only reach a certain ceiling of people that work in tech sales. And I'm having kind of trouble with my content now where I feel like I'm kind of plateauing. I'm trying to focus on becoming nicheless, breaking out of my tech sales niche, the niche is me, Vin. Now, it just so happens that I do work in tech sales right now, and that's what I'm focused on, and I create content about that. But I also like to create content about traveling. I like to create content about cooking, about eating healthy, about fitness, about running, about creating content. And so I'm trying to really just become nicheless, more or less. But that's how I decided to choose the tech sales niche to begin with. I really like how these kind of broke away from tech sales, and it was including my content creation journey as well. So I really like talking about that. So maybe if you're interested to learn more about how to get into content creation, how to monetize as a content creator, comment below and I can make some more content series regarding that versus tech sales. But if you guys found any enjoyment or education within this video, please hit subscribe. I am cranking out videos for you guys this year. That's my main goal, is to try to monetize my YouTube channel. We are at the halfway point for the qualifications. I think you need 3,000 hours of watch time. I think we're at like 1,200 hours, so maybe a little below halfway point, but we are almost there. What would really help is if you guys subscribe and give this video a like. Thank you guys, and happy selling.